meeting is being streamed live via the Township of Addington Highlands YouTube channel. To those present in the gallery today by attending a public meeting of the Committee of Adjustment, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or secretary have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of the live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act 2001 and in accordance with the Ontario's Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, that all information provided for or at a public meeting / consultation or other public process are considered part of the public record. Members of the committee, staff, delegations, and attendees should be mindful of using names of individuals or entities when discussing matters in public. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behavior and/or comments. As per the Township's procedure bylaw as amended, all votes during electronic meetings will be recorded votes. All members of Committee of Adjustment are participating in person from the council chambers. Applicants and any other members of the public may participate in person or electronically during this meeting. So we're moving to the approval of the agenda. We have an addition to the agenda. It's an email from Tracy Vandervert. So we're going to have approval of the agenda with the addition. Approved by Deputy Reeve. Moved by Deputy Reeve Hook. Second by Councillor Yanch. Call the vote. Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Hook.
Yes.
Councillor Yanch.
Yes.
And that motion is carried. Adoption of the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting dated October 27th, 2025. Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Yanch. Any errors, omissions? Vote, Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Hook.
Yes.
Councillor Yanch.
Yes.
And that motion is carried. So there's no business arising from the minutes. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. None noted. Next is applications for minor variance. Item 6.1 is minor variance 2025/05, Postma et al. Patricia, do you want to provide an overview?
Thank you. Yes, this is an application for a minor variance submitted by Carrie Ann Postma, James Gunter, and Charles Gunter with their agents, Frank Smith and Matthew Postma, both working as the agent. The applicants are seeking a minor variance for their property located at 5702 West Limekiln Lake Road, described as Part Lot 28, Concession 13, Part 2 on Reference Plan 3032 in the geographic township of Effingham. The applicants are proposing to construct a seasonal dwelling with an associated septic system and an underground rainwater harvesting tank. The proposed dwelling is approximately 167 square meters or 1,800 square feet, equating to an 8.4% lot coverage, is 10 meters, will be within the 10 meters height limitation, and is to be located on the western portion of the lot, which is relatively flat. The dwelling will be set back a minimum of 32.9 meters from the lake and is 16.7 meters from West Limekiln Lake Road. The dwelling is proposed to be serviced by a new septic system and lake water. The proposed sewage disposal system will exceed the required setbacks of the zone and exceed the setback from the high water mark of the lake. The applicants propose that the new building will be located closer to the rear lot line than permitted by the township zoning bylaw, and the applicants are requesting relief from section 731 III minimum rear yard, which requires a 10-meter setback, and propose a 5.4 sorry, a 4.5 meter setback in order to facilitate the construction of the dwelling. The subject lands are approximately 0.2 hectares or 0.49 acres and have approximately 13.7 meters of frontage on West Limacune Lake Road and approximately 62.8 meters of frontage along the road. There is an existing boathouse and shed located on the southeast end of the property. Access is provided by a driveway connecting to West Limacune Lake Road, and the site slopes northwest to southeast, which is primarily grassed with a few trees along the border. Arcadis Professional Services acts as the planning consultant for the municipality and has provided a planning report, which was included in the agenda package. Arcadis has provided an analysis of the application and the 4 tests of a minor variance in accordance with Section 45 of the Planning Act and provided an opinion on those 4 tests. With respect to the first test to maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan, Schedule A of the county official plan identifies the lands as rural and permits a variety of uses as determined by the local official plan, including the proposed residential use. Schedule A2 of the township official plan identifies the subject lands as waterfront residential, which permits the residential use. Section 771 identifies policies for development adjacent to waterfront and include direction that development be creatively designed to enhance and protect the sensitive nature of the shoreline resources, avoiding the crowding of buildings. The proposed development has been positioned to maintain a 30-meter setback to the water, and although the variance will allow the dwelling to be closer to the lot line shared with another waterfront residential parcel, the reduced rear yard is not anticipated to result in the crowding of buildings. Subject property is located adjacent to West Limacune Lake, which is a highly sensitive lake trout lake. For existing lots of record, the minimum setback is 30 meters, but the greatest setback achievable is recommended. The proposed dwelling is located 32.9 meters from the lake and the proposed septic system is located further back between the dwelling and the West Limacune Lake Road. Given the small lot size and the physical constraints of the proposed site, the proposed dwelling and septic are generally located in the greatest achievable setback. As per Section 771, an environmental impact study, or EIS, is required to support development adjacent to fish habitat within 150 meters. This is to demonstrate that there will be no negative impacts to the features or functions of the watercourse of the fish habitat as a result of the proposed development. In accordance with the Natural Heritage Reference Manual, if intervening development already exists within manual recommended adjacent land widths, the demonstration of no negative impact can be a simple statement in a planning report that no negative impacts are anticipated where appropriate. It is anticipated that the proposed reduction in the rear yard will not result in negative impacts to fish habitat, as the shoreline and adjacent to the property is generally developed with existing boathouses, which are located downslope to the proposed dwelling. No alteration to the shoreline is proposed, and no development is proposed within 30 meters of the setback of the water. Further to this, no significant vegetation removal will be required in order to facilitate the development, and retention of any native vegetation between the dwelling and water is recommended as a condition of the approval. Based on this, and given the scale of the development, an EIS was not required, and it is expected that sediment and erosion control measures will be in place throughout the construction process. It is the opinion that the proposed reduction in the rear yard maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan, which is to permit residential uses on the subject lands, provided there will be no adverse impact on natural heritage features or neighboring properties. With respect to the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, the second test of a minor variance, the subject property is residential limited service and the existing proposed residential use is permitted in the zone. The variance for reduction in the rear yard from 10 meters to 4.5 meters meets the intent of the zoning bylaw to ensure that building and structures are appropriately placed on the property, ensuring adequate spacing between buildings and maintaining orderly yards. In this case, the rear yard is the southern lot line, which abuts another waterfront lot, which is vacant except for a boathouse. Once the dwelling is constructed, there will be sufficient space between the dwelling and the rear yard line, being 4.5 meters, for access and to maintenance of the rear wall, as well to introduce future vegetation for screening as if desired. A condition to ensure maximum retention of existing vegetation in the rear yard, if any exists, is recommended to support screening between the vacant property to the south and the proposed dwelling. No negative impacts to privacy are anticipated given the 4.5 meter rear yard setback to the vacant nature of the abutting lot and the maximum height of 10 meters, which limits the potential of overlook on the property neighboring. The proposed dwelling is of an appropriate scale for the size of the lot and will fully comply with the water body setback, maximum lot coverage, building height, and minimum lot frontage and side yard requirements of the zone. Based on this, the planner is of the opinion that the requested relief is consistent with the general intent and purpose of the bylaw. With respect to the third test, to whether the application is minor, this determination is not based on the degree of variation requested, but rather the impact on granting the request. This includes how the application could impact the existing planned functionality of the subject lands or the adjacent lands. Impact can include, but not limited to, the environmental nuisance such as noise, vibration, and dust, or visual and functional attributes. The proposed reduction from 10 meters to 4.5 meters for the dwelling is minor in nature in that it is not anticipated to negatively impact the functionality of the subject land or adjacent land. There will be sufficient space between the dwelling and the rear yard lot line for access and maintenance, and then there will be a condition to ensure maximum retention of existing vegetation if it exists in this yard. No negative impacts to privacy are anticipated given the proposed 4.5 meter yard setback, as well as the vacant nature of the abutting lot, and the fact that the dwelling will comply with the maximum building height of 10 meters, which limits the potential for overlook to the neighboring property. The proposed footprint is appropriate to the size of the property and consistent with the range of waterfront dwellings found in the area. Based on this, the planner is of the opinion the requested relief is considered minor. With respect to the fourth test, the application be desirable and appropriate development for the use of the land, building, or structure. The intended development as per the official plan, zoning bylaw is desirable and appropriate as it will facilitate the construction of a dwelling on an existing lot of record while maximizing the water body setback for the dwelling and associated septic system. The reduced rear yard will allow for a modest-sized home to be constructed with no anticipated negative impacts on the adjacent properties or water body. As such, the planner is of the opinion the variance requested is desirable and appropriate. As for consultation, the County of Lennox and Addington, property owners within 60 meters, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, the chief building official, and the Lake West Lemcoon Conservation Association were consulted on the application. Comments were received and included in the agenda package and considered by the planner. Comments were received from the Lake West Lemcoon Conservation Association with concerns regarding an environmental impact study. These concerns were outlined in the report, and it was determined that it was not warranted At this instance, given the scale of development and setbacks from the water and the limited water frontage, a condition has been included regarding maintenance and enhancement of vegetation to control runoff from the developed areas towards the lake, which is typical best practice recommendation for a waterfront development. Comments were received regarding overshadowing and encroachment onto the rear yard and the scale of development, and further comments were received which were included in the addendum as an addendum today and objecting to the application. These comments were received from Tracy Vandervoort. The comments included in the agenda package were her first comments. The ones received today and included as an addendum objecting to the application also included a comment, and I'll read that as it was not included in printed form. With regards to the comments that the rear yard will now effectively function as a side yard, therefore the minor variance is really only 5 meters to 4.5 meters. I'm still struggling with that statement. If the code differentiated between the side yard and rear yards with different requirements, it is intended to be treated differently. I just want to be clear that they are not the same thing and that the minor variance on the rear yard from 10 meters to 4.5 meters results in 2 side yards of the structure within 4.5 to 5 meters of my property line. That is very close. This is a small lot in a rural setting requiring a septic system. It's my thought that the size of the building might be oversized given the limitations. And so that comment should be considered as well, and that was forwarded to the planner. So all those comments from this nearby property owner were considered, and the comments in the planning report were with respect to all of the comments received from this person. With regards to overshadowing and encroachment into the rear yard, the scale of the development and further comments were received were also included. It was addressed in the report, and firstly, starting with the concern of overshadowing and the general sense of encroachment onto the property as a result of the variance, it is noted that any overshadowing would be minimal due to the height of the dwelling and would only be cast to the west onto the driveway area of the adjacent property. The proposed dwelling satisfies the minimum yards requirement for the westerly yard, so the degree of shadowing is unchanged by the variance. Regarding the encroachment, the proposed dwelling is effectively limited to a maximum 2-story building or 10 meters and will still be set 4.5 meters or 15 feet from the property line, as this yard effectively functions as an interior side yard where a minimum setback is only 5 meters. The proximity of the proposed dwelling to the adjoining property is consistent with what is anticipated for a waterfront residential area. With that being said, the planner is recommending a condition that encourages the applicant to provide a landscape buffer between the proposed dwelling and the neighboring property. Comments were also received from a nearby property owner, Powers et al., as there were others on the letter, with disagreement that the proposed variance was not minor or desirable and resulted in an off-center structure, and concerns with the building not being consistent with the current structures in the neighborhood in conformance with the official plan with respect to the adequate quality and quantity of water and adequate sewage disposal, as well as dedication to the municipality for a road widening and vegetative buffer, municipal drinking water system or Safe Water Drinking Act. All of these comments were also addressed by the planner in the report. The proponents and the planner responded that the proponents are not required to center the building on the property. It is not always possible or feasible, and typically these circumstances need to be addressed through a minor variance. With respect to the building size and the neighborhood based on a review of the existing waterfront development. The proposed development is in keeping with the character of the area and is generally consistent with the range of waterfront dwelling sizes found in the area, with the variation between existing dwelling sizes. The proposed dwelling results in an 8.4% lot coverage, where the maximum lot coverage permitted in accordance with the zoning bylaw is 30%, and the proposed development maintains the required setback from the road and interior lot lines, as well as the lake setback. With respect to the conformance with the official plan, it was previously discussed in the report, but in particular in relation to the adequate quality and quantity of water and adequate sewage disposal. The property is an existing lot of record, which is proposed to be developed with a seasonal dwelling. The proposed use of surface water from the lake to service a dwelling which can be treated and is such as understood to meet the intent of the official plan for sufficient quality and quantity of water. For the development of an existing lot of record, the proposed design will be reviewed by the chief building official through the future building permit application process. And per the submitted plan, the applicant has demonstrated that the lot is sufficient for on-site sewage disposal. And further, the proposed septic system design will also be reviewed through the future building permit application process. With respect to the question about dedication of a road widening, this cannot be required as a condition of a minor variance. Comments seeking clarification on how the application conforms with the official plan in section 771, which speaks to vegetative buffer. This was discussed earlier as well, but the condition will apply that any existing natural vegetation located between the proposed development and the water body will generally be maintained and enhanced in order to control the flow of sediment-laden runoff from the developed area into the water body and to provide visual screening for the benefit of the adjoining owner and the area immediately abutting the dwelling. Regarding 7.71J, which speaks to the consideration of potential archaeological resource, an archaeological assessment was not required in relation to the proposed variance. With respect to the question whether the lot is adequate for the proposed use and the proposed use, the proposed lot is designated as waterfront residential and zone residential limited service, therefore intended for residential development. The site is currently vacant except for a boathouse and storage shed. The applicant is proposing a single detached dwelling, which is in line with the intended use and the intensity for the site use for the site. And with regards to, the currently vacant. Let me start that part again. With respect to the question of the lot, whether the lot is adequate for the proposed use, the proposed lot is designated residential and zoned residential limited service. Therefore, therefore intended for a residential development. The site is currently vacant except for a boathouse and storage shed. The applicant is proposing a single detached dwelling, which is in line with the intended use. With respect to the inquiry regarding non-municipal drinking water system, and the approval for the Safe Water Drinking Act, it is understood that private individual water systems are not regulated under the Safe Drinking Water Act. And finally, the question regarding conformance with section 9.3.4 and 9.4 of the official plan. The application conforms with these sections as demonstrated in the report. The township zoning bylaw specifies adequate development standards, and proposed variance maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw as required under the Planning Act, and sections 9.4.1 and 9.4.2 are not directly applicable to the application. So in summary, considering all the policy analysis and review of the 4 tests, the planner is recommending that the Committee of Adjustment approve the application for minor variance subject to conditions, as the application is minor in nature, desirable and appropriate, and maintains the intent and purpose of the Township of Addington Highlands official plan and zoning bylaw. The conditions for approval are as follows: that the proposed development shall be consistent with the drawings provided in the application to the satisfaction of the municipality, that the maximum height of the dwelling shall be 10 meters, and that any existing vegetation located between the proposed development and the water be generally maintained and enhanced in order to control the flow and sediment-laden runoff from the developed area into the water body, and to provide visual screening for the benefit of the adjoining property in the area immediately abutting the dwelling. So the agent for the applicants, Matthew Postma, is attending the meeting today in person, and online we have attending one of the neighboring property owners that provided comments, Tracy Vandervoort, as well as the other applicants. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia, for your detailed explanation. So Tracy Vandervoort, did you want to speak to the Committee of Adjustment?
Sorry, I'm just going to put my camera on. So what I've tried to articulate in the information that I sent is the framing of the rear yard now being a side yard, and therefore it's minor. The act or the regulations as you have differentiate between side yard and rear yard. So presenting that there's perpendicular side yards on the corner, that southwest corner, I'm really struggling with describing it as minor when there's over a 50% reduction in the distance as part of the minor piece. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Okay, thank you. You can just stay there online for a minute, Tracy. Do any of the members of the Committee Adjustment have questions for? Go ahead, Deputy Reeve-Hook.
Could we bring up the Arcadis report where there's a sketch of the property? It's figure 3. To show exactly where that variance is on the map, because there's not a figure there showing 4.5 meters, unless I'm missing something. Yeah, could we do that, please? There's different figures, but I was looking all over that sketch for 4.5 meters and I don't see it. But that's not the real yard though. Rear yard, isn't it? It's the rear yard is at the lake.
The rear yard is the southern yard. So the road is the front yard, and the rear yard is the yard to the south.
Okay. All right. I do see that figure then. That's okay, Christine. It's just in my head that, yeah, rear yard, if you're on a lake, the rear yard is away from the lake.
Yes.
That's why I couldn't.
Yeah, you would naturally think that it took
Yeah.
even. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And that rear yard is 4.572 meters setback, and the side is 5.18.
Right. And then the distance from the lake is still over the minimum 30 meters. It's over that, isn't it? Right? So, okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
I just like to point out that it's my property that's between theirs property and the lake.
That's correct. So the property line, the 4.572 meters, the property below that is Ms. Vandervoort's property. That would be the adjoining property line.
I had a question for you, Tracy, because I don't really see it. Just relative to that property line, whereabouts is your building on your lot?
If you followed the lines directly below where the proposed building is, my boathouse is right there. So it's roughly below where it says distance from property line to water. That right below there is where my boathouse is.
Okay, so Okay, so that's an area of a boathouse. Is there anything else on that property?
No, no permanent structure on that on that property. The property is an L-shaped property.
Yep.
So if you follow from the corner of their existing boathouse and then around sort of off the page and then up to where it comes into the left side of the driveway, that's my property.
Okay.
You can
Thank
see
you.
it better on the picture above the document that I was provided, the colored, where their property is surrounded or outlined in red, and then that section that goes down towards the water and then back up on the property line.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for Tracy? Let's see, any other questions for Committee of Adjustment? Do you have any other comments right now, Tracy?
No, I don't appreciate the opportunity to have a discussion about it.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go on next to Matt Postman. Did you want to address the committee on behalf of the applicant?
Good morning. I have some comments. First, I wanted to take this moment to thank everyone involved in the preparation of the staff report for the minor variance application submitted by the Gunter and Postma families. I don't want to be repetitive, but I'm going to probably repeat some of the things that Patricia said. Something new I learned in this process. I was not aware that 30% lot coverage was permittable for a building. While 30% is allowable, the proposed dwelling only equates to 8.4% of lot coverage and is in accordance with the township zoning bylaw. That said, the dwelling proposed in this application is only 28% of what is allowable. So I wouldn't think that I would consider the proposed building to be oversized. Patricia alluded or spoke about the 4 tests, and number 1, maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan, which it says in the report, the proposed reduction in rear yard maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan, which is to permit residential uses on the subject lands. Second, maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, where it notes in the report, we are of the opinion that the requested relief is consistent with the general intent and purpose of the bylaw as proposed. Third, be minor. And again, we are of the opinion that the requested relief is considered minor. And fourth, be desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building, or structure. And it concludes, it allows for a modest sized home to be constructed with no anticipated negative impacts on adjacent properties or water body. And as such, we are of the opinion that the variances are desirable and appropriate. The report provides comments from the association, the immediate neighboring property from the southwest, and a number of comments from a nearby property owner. The report, in my opinion, addresses all comments on every and all concerns from the association and both neighboring properties. So I really have nothing further to add to those comments and rely on the conclusions which is noted in the report. The report recommends that the application be approved subject to conditions. Also noted that the application is considered minor in nature, desirable, appropriate, and also maintains the intent and purpose of the Township of Addington Highlands official plan and zoning bylaws as amended. So in conclusion, Both the Gunter and Postma families are in agreement with the conclusions and recommendations of the report, and we are in agreement with the 3 conditions of approval, and we hope that the Committee of Adjustment finds same.
Thank you, Matt. Do you have any questions for Mr. Postman? No questions for the Committee of Adjustment from them to Matt. Do you have any other comments you want to add, Patricia?
Just that at the end of the report that I provided in the agenda package, there was a recommendation there to approve the minor variance with the conditions, as well as receive the reports.
Thank you. So we have, if there's no other comments, we have a recommendation to receive the report and to approve the minor variance application MV 2025/05 with the 3 conditions as described.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Yantch. We'll call the vote. Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Hook?
Yes.
Councillor Yantch?
Yes.
And that motion is carried. And thank you, Tracy, for your comments, and Matt for being here to provide your comments.
I might make it by dinner.
The next item on the agenda is item 7.1, application for consent, severance 2024/10 under the name Wilson. Patricia, do you want to provide an overview of that one, please?
Thank you. So this is a consent application that was submitted by Julie and Daryl Wilson to create a new lot, 10 acres in size, from their property described as part lot 31 and 32 in concession 8 in the geographic township of Calidar, known as 17 Bosley Road in Northbrook. The property fronts along both Bosley Road and Highway 41, and the new lot is proposed to have approximately 800 feet of frontage or 243 meters of frontage along Highway 41. The severed lot is also being accessed by a driveway connecting to Highway 41 along the southern end of the lot, and the proposed lot is in the northeast corner of the parcel. The retained land will have most of its frontage along Bosley Road and will have an entrance from Bosley Road, as well as the ministry will not support an entrance from Highway 41. The lot is currently vacant and the new residential use is proposed on the newly severed lot. As mentioned, this application is being brought back from deferral as there were some further information required, and it was also determined that a minor variance was going to be required, as the proposed new lot is within 69 meters of an extractive industrial zone shown as M4 on the zoning schedules within the township zoning bylaw. A 150 meters setback is required from an extractive industrial zone, and consequently the applicants are applying for a minor variance to reduce that required setback of 150 meters. They are applying for this minor variance concurrently with the consent application. Both the consent application and minor variance are being considered at this hearing today. Arcadis Professional Services provides planning consulting services to the township and has provided a planning report, which includes policy analysis of the provincial planning statement, the county and township official plans, the township zoning bylaw as amended. The planning report was included in the agenda and a link of the agenda provided to the applicants. With respect to the provincial planning statement, the proposed use is permitted on the rural lands and it is compatible with the rural landscape and complies to minimum distance separation formula of the proposed lot. It is suitable for long-term provision of individual on-site sewage services and water. It is not anticipated to negatively impact natural heritage features, and the lot creation is located outside of natural heritage and natural hazard areas and not anticipated to negatively impact public health. And the overall application is consistent with the PPS. With respect to the County of Lennox and Addington official plan, Schedule A identifies the subject lands as rural, which permits the proposed use, and Schedule B does not identify any natural heritage natural hazard areas on the adjacent or subject lands. Schedule C identifies a portion of the lands lying at the boundary of mineral potential designation. However, the more detailed township official plan indicates the mineral resource lies further south of the subject lands, and it is noted by the Ministry of Mines that there are minimal potential resources identified and that they are not significant. Schedule C identifies the licensed mineral aggregate operation and selected sand and gravel resource area of secondary significance on the adjacent lands to the north. It is required that mineral aggregate operations shall be protected from development and activities that would preclude or hinder their expansion or continued use, which would be incompatible for reasons of public health or public safety or environmental impact. The county OP requires that when development is proposed within 300 meters of a pit and 500 meters of a quarry, the approval authority shall require a land use compatibility assessment to determine conformity with the plan. A portion of the resource area located northwest of subject lands is currently being extracted. However, there is an existing dwelling or sensitive use on the property west of the subject lands, which is closer to the resource area or existing pit than the subject lands or future building envelope, which already exists, which already limits, the extent of extraction in terms of noise, dust, and other impacts on nearby sensitive uses. As such, the proposed severance for residential use would not further preclude the existing or future extraction of the resource than what exists today, and a land compatibility assessment was not requested. Further to this, the licensed area for the pit is approximately 100 meters from the proposed lot, which is greater than the 70-meter minimum separation distance for a class 2 industrial facility as identified by the provincial D6 guidelines for compatibility between industrial facilities. As such, the subject lands are on the provincial highway and local road or a township road and not a county road, and therefore permissions from the county are not required. The application for consent conforms to the policies of the county official plan. With respect to the township official plan, Schedule A identifies the subject lands as rural, which permits a range of uses, including agricultural and residential. The proposed consent conforms with the rural area policies outlined in sections 4.4.1 of the official plan, as it maintains the rural character of the township while ensuring there are no demands placed on the township for services which are costly or difficult to provide. The property was complete was the property was complete and included potential barns. An MDS calculation was completed on the property as there were potential barns within 1,500 meters of the subject lands. A barn located at 13258 Highway 41, used for alpacas, and was captured from aerial imaging and used to calculate a maximum capacity for the barn for 40 alpacas, and the MDS setback for the barn was calculated to be 162 meters. The actual setback for the barn from the subject lands is 1,416 meters. The barn located at 179 Bosley Road is used for cows and chickens. The owner provided a maximum capacity of 8 cows and 11 chickens. However, given this estimate, it seemed low for the barn. The owner was contacted for clarification on the size. The barn is 225 square feet. An MDS calculation was done on the maximum size permitted and calculated that a 387 meter setback for the proposed retained lands and a 387 meters for the retained lands, which are 349 meters actually, and a 308. Sorry, I have this mixed up. Let me just check that. I just have to check those setbacks. The proposed retained lands are 349 meters from the barn, while the severed lands are 382. The requirement was 387. Sorry about that. As per the OMAFRA publication 853, guideline 41, the proposed lots without an existing dwelling that are greater than a hectare in size, MDS 1 setbacks are measured as a shortest distance between a 0.5 hectare or larger building envelope and surrounding livestock occupied portions of the livestock barns. Both the severed and retained lots are undeveloped, are greater than 1 hectare in size, and have a 0.5 hectare or larger building envelope outside the generated MDS setback. And as such, the consent application complies with the MDS formulae. Schedule B of the Township official plan identifies a portion of the subject lands as mineral aggregate, as well as portions of the subject lands on the adjacent lands. There is a licensed pit to the northwest boundary of the designated area for extraction, being located approximately 350 meters from the proposed severance. The official plan speaks to the development on the within the adjacent mineral resource areas and describing the influence areas as 150 meters next to any mineral aggregate resource area where sand and gravel are located in 300 meters where any mineral aggregate resource area where sand and gravel are being extracted below the water table. As per section 3.4.2, non-aggregate development may be permitted within or adjacent to mineral aggregate resources if the extraction of the aggregate is not feasible due to the quality or quantity of such aggregate, or proposed land use would not significantly preclude or hinder future extraction. Mineral aggregate resources located on subject lands lie at the very boundary of the lands with which the large portion of the deposit already being developed with the provincial highway and the township road, rendering extraction of the aggregate to likely not be feasible in terms of quality and quantity. Further, the Ministry of Mines commented that nearby 41 is built on it, leaving a small sliver of the deposit of fine rich sands, which may be improper for many uses as a portion of mineral aggregate resource. located to the northwest of the subject lands. The township official plan limits lot creation to a maximum of 3 lots, inclusive of the retained. The application complies with this policy. Lot creation should be considered infilling in existing developed areas or result in rounding out of the developed areas and not unduly extend developed areas. The proposed severance generally results in rounding out of existing developed area. The development does not require extension of roads or public services. And a report by the chief building official regarding inspection of test holes, which with respect to sewage systems on site, sewage system services reports that the site is adequate for a class 4 sewage system and the lot is greater than 1 hectare in size. And township policy does not require that a well be established on the lot for consent. And the lot is located on a public road. Therefore, the requirements of 7.5.2 of the official plan, township official plan are met. The proposed consent conforms with the development policies of section 8.2.4, which require appropriate setbacks, safe ingress and egress, as well as buffering. Comments provided by MTO indicate the proposed driveway with providing access to the severed lands from Highway 41 is acceptable and require a highway corridor management permit. Based on this analysis, the proposed development conforms to the township official plan. With respect to the township zoning bylaw, the subject lands are zoned rural, and the zone permits a range of uses, including a single unit dwelling. The lands are proposed for future residential use, and the proposed retained land is to remain vacant at this time. It is anticipated that it will be residential in the future. The proposed severed lot, as well as the retained, meet the requirement for minimum area and minimum frontage. There is adequate area for future development on the severed and retained lands and they comply with all setbacks. Township zoning bylaw requires that no new residential lot or new dwelling shall be located within 150 meters of an extractive industrial zone, which only removal of processing of sand and gravel involved. The proposed severed lot is within 69 meters of the M4 zone or extractive industrial zone, as shown on figures 6 and 7 included in the report and mentioned earlier. The M4 zone contains an active pit. In order for the proposed lot creation to be permitted, a minor variance is being sought to decrease the minimum setback from the extractive industrial zone for the new residential lot from 150 meters to 69 meters. As the severance application and minor variance application are running concurrently, the planning report included an analysis of the minor variance as well. With respect to the minor variance, the 4 tests of section as set out in section 45 of the Planning Act, the planning report provided the following. With respect to the first test of minor variance, the general intent and purpose of the official plan and subject lands are rural and again identified as mineral potential and mineral potential in the adjacent lands. The county official plan D54 and D54 requires mineral aggregate operations be protected from development and activities that preclude or hinder the expansion. Section C requires the proposed development be greater than 300 meters from a pit and 500 meters from a quarry, and that a land use compatibility assessment be required to determine conformity with the plan. However, there is, as mentioned, an existing sensitive use on the property west of the subject lands, which is closer to the resource area and existing pit than the proposed new development and not owned by the applicants. And as such, the variance to permit the severance would not further preclude the existing or further extraction of the resource than exists today. The land use compatibility assessment was not required as a township official plan designated area for the pit extraction is over 300 meters from the subject lands. Further to this, the licensed area of the pit is greater than 70 meters from the proposed lot. With the 70-meter minimum separation distance for Class 2 industrial facilities being identified by the provincial D6 guidelines for compatibility. Schedule B of the township official plan identifies a portion of the subject lands as mineral aggregate, as well as portions of the subject lands adjacent. There with land adjacent there with respect to the pit to the northwest. The extraction area is approximately 350 meters from the proposed severance, which exceeds the required 300 meters setback from sand and gravel extraction below the water table, or 150 meters from sand and gravel above the water table, and therefore would not significantly preclude or hinder further extraction. Further, as mentioned earlier, the Ministry of Mines did not find there was significant useful mineral resource on the subject land and noted that the nearby Highway 41 was built on the resource, leaving only a small sliver of the deposit of fine rich sands, which may be improper for many uses. Further to this, as the dwelling or if the dwelling or sensitive use west of the proposed lot Further to this, as there is a dwelling or sensitive use west of the proposed lot, this creates a sensitive use closer to the exact extractive zone than the proposed development, and as such, closer than what exists today. Based on this, the opinion of the planner is that the reduced setback from the extractive industrial zone for the new residential lot maintains the intent and purpose of the official plan. Maintaining the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and subject land, the subject lands are zoned rural. The range of uses include the single unit dwelling, and the proposed lands are for the future residential use. And the retained lands are to remain vacant at its time, but anticipated to be residential. The zoning bylaw requires no new residential uses are permitted within 150 meters of an extractive zone or M4 zone. The proposed lot is 69 meters from the M4 zone, and in accordance with the mapping schedule shown in figures 6 and 7 included in the agenda. The intent of the required setback is to protect the aggregate operation while ensuring that there are no negative impacts on the sensitive use. The variance applies to the lot creation only. The future proposed dwelling will be required to comply with the provision at the time of the building permit being issued. And the proposed dwelling will still be located outside of the 150 meters setback from the M4 zone. Based on the analysis, it is the opinion of the planner that the relief requested is consistent with the general intent of the zoning bylaw. With respect to the third test of the minor variance, that the application be minor in nature, it is not based on the degree of variation, but rather the impact of granting the request, and includes considering the impact on the existing or planned functionality of the subject lands and the lands adjacent. And the impact can include environmental nuisance such as noise, vibration, dust, or visual and functional attributes. The proposed reduction in setback from the M4 zone for the new residential lot is minor in that it is not anticipated to impact the existing aggregate operation. As described previously, it is not anticipated to impact the sensitive use as there is a dwelling outside of, as the dwelling will remain outside of the 150 meter setback. And based on this, the opinion is that the relief requested is considered minor. And finally, the request must be desirable and appropriate for the development. of the use of the land, building or structure. The lands are intended for residential development. The variance is desirable and appropriate as it will facilitate the creation of residential lot through the related consent application as described in this report and satisfied the relevant policies of provincial planning statement, the county official plan, the township official plan, and is regular in shape and has sufficient area for developing no new anticipated negative impacts on the surrounding uses. And as such, the planner is of the opinion that the variances are desirable and appropriate for the development of the land. The county of Lennox and Addington, the property owners within 60 meters, the chief building official, the Township Road Department, the Quinte Conservation Authority, the Ministry of Transportation, and the Ministry of Mines were all consulted on the application. Comments were received and considered and attached to the planning report. The planning report included a recommendation to approve with conditions for both the consent and the minor variance. The recommendation to approve the consent included conditions regarding the the survey and the minor variance and a 3-meter strip regarding the request from the Ministry of Transportation. It included conditions regarding the certificate of the official, as well as the requirement for deeds, payment of all taxes and debentures, an entrance permit from the road authority being MTO, and that the applicant acknowledge MTO approvals, and that the applicant acknowledge that the severed lands and retained lands lie within the regulated areas of Quinte Conservation and obtain all permits required there. And also that in the case that the surveyor finds that there is a township road lying within the boundaries of the retained parcel, such portions of the township road shall be surveyed and the applicant shall provide the township with a registered deed of conveyance and legal plan for the township road. This shall be sufficient to provide a 10-meter road right-of-way from the center line of Bosley Road, and all costs related shall be borne by the applicant. So that condition is quite important, as we've recently seen a survey that indicates that may be the case, that Bosley Road may be actually on the applicant's land. That was not thought to be the case when they first applied in accordance with their deed. So we have included that condition. The applicant is aware that condition has been included. I did think they were going to attend today, but obviously they did not, but they were made aware of that. There is a recommendation at the end of the report to receive the reports and approve the application for consent with the conditions, and then also to approve the minor variance with conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. When you put a consent application, a minor variance together in the same package, you have a lot of information to work through. So thanks. Can we can include these all together? Should we split them apart? We can do that. I can split it into the 3. Okay.
Yeah, so I would do the 3 separate recommendations or resolutions.
Okay. So before we do that, do you have any questions for Patricia? Go ahead, Deputy Hook.
So there's a proposed driveway for the new lot, and the retained lot, because he has an entrance already on the Bosley Road, he's not going to be allowed to put, and I guess when I understand that MTO doesn't want a lot of new driveways, right? So this 0.3-meter strip that they're wanting to be deeded to the MTO, is that something new, or have we seen that before?
It is something fairly new. We've seen it on a few of the other applications that we've done recently. So yes, they're going to deed that that strip to the MTO, so that will prevent any future driveways along the retained land. And we've seen that recently on one that was also done in Denby, where there was a lot addition, and they did the same thing, and that is to ensure that there's no future driveways.
So in the future, when we do get more severances along Highway 41, they'll probably do the same, but they'll make that requirement. So, you know, you're allowed one driveway, but don't expect any more. Is that kind of the way they're thinking?
I would expect so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so if you did in the future want a future driveway there, it's already owned by the MTO, so I don't know what the process would be if you ever did apply to get another driveway there, but yeah, that's their intent. If it's deeded to them, then it would prevent that in the
Right.
future.
Okay, and I have a second question, if I may. The retained lands, there's still quite a bit of property to retain. The applicant still could sever another lot off of that. It's possible, but they would have to have a driveway on the Bosley Road. Which would be-
That's
shouldn't be a
correct.
problem.
There was only, this was an existing lot of record as of the date of the official plan. So this would be their first lot created onto that
Okay.
lot.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions for Patricia? Okay, go ahead, Patricia.
That being said, there was a lot to consider with this lot creation. The MDS calculations, the setback from the extraction zone. There's also creating a number of lots, the number of lots that can be created within that MDS calculation. So the potential for creating another lot is unknown. But as far as the numbers go, there is that potential.
Okay, so we'll do each recommendation separately. So for recommendation number 1 is to receive the reports. Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Yantch. Call the vote. Councillor Thompson,
Yes.
Councillor Yantch. Oh, Deputy Reeve Hook,
Yes,
Councillor Yantch.
Yes.
That motion is carried. Recommendation number 2 is for consent file for the severance 202410. Do I have a motion to approve that? Moved by Councillor Yantch, second by Deputy Reeve Hook. Call the vote. Councillor Thompson,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Hook.
yes,
Councillor Yantch.
Yes.
And that motion is carried. Recommendation number 3 is for minor variance, MV 2025/06, that it be approved subject to the conditions described. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Deputy Reeve Hook. Call the vote. Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Hook.
yes.
And Councillor Yantch.
Yes.
And that motion is carried. Any correspondence? None. We have a motion to adjourn. Councillor Yantch. Councillor Thompson. Call the vote. Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Hook.
Yes.
Councillor Yantch. And that motion is carried. Thank you, everyone, for participating today and staff for providing the reports. And the meeting is adjourned.